Welcome back to the Triple Thread Podcast. I'm Lamar.
And I'm Joey.
And we welcome today our special VIP, Kevin Aldridge.
Let's go.
Kevin, we're so grateful you're here.
Hey, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Listen, I'm trying to remember back where you and I first met. You're a Middletonian, so but we've known each other for quite some time, and you're going to love, Joe, as we talked about these VIPs, you're going to love Kevin's story because not only is he he's a local young man, and I said young man, did you hear that?
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
These gray hairs kind of tell a different story.
Right.
Shave mine off.
But he has accomplished so much, and so take us kind of down the road, give us kind of a snapshot of life, and we'll dive in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Middletown is home. Born and raised here. Grew up out in the Ayrshire subdivision out here in the East End, and just had a great childhood. Middletown was a great community to grow up in back then. Just very community oriented, a lot of community events. And, I tell my wife, who's from Cincinnati, and she always kind of tries to small town me about Middletown, like, Middletown's small town. And I told her, like, when I was a kid growing up, like, Middletown was a self-contained community. You didn't need to go anywhere else. Right. We had like 5 or 6 movie theaters, couple drive-ins, couple of malls.
The town mall, baby, come on.
Yeah, well, and even when I was a kid, the city center mall was even still kind of around back then. And any kind of restaurant you would want. And it was just a really cool community. All-American Weekend, Fenwick Festival, Mid-Fest. I mean, it was just a really, really great town to grow up in. And, of course, I played basketball for the Middies in high school, and that's an entirely different thing. Sports in Middletown is always a huge thing. And Friday nights for football and,
Barnes, baby.
Weekday basketball games. I mean, the entire community would come out for these events. And so Middletown played a big role in kind of shaping who I was and just my outlook on life and just the diversity of the community. That's the other thing that I always appreciated.
I love that.
Was, how diverse Middletown was and, how we kind of all – if you were a Middie, like people pull behind you. Like with any family, you have your disagreements and stuff like that. But when it came to Middletown and being a Middie, that's what we all were. Yeah. And so I just kind of carried that with me when I went away to college. I went to Wittenberg University up in Springfield. Went there for 4 years.
Did you play any sports there?
I played basketball my first year there.
You.
I did. And then the second year there, first year didn't kind of go how I wanted to. Second year, you kind of see the writing on the wall, and it's like, there's not a lot of 5'9", guys balling in the NBA.
Did you have hops, though?
I did. I used to, they used to call me Spud Webb.
I was going to say
I was thinking Spud Webb.
I had a terrible, I had a great vertical, man. My vertical was off the chart. It was like I couldn't dunk because I couldn't quite palm the ball back then. My hands weren't big enough.
But you could get up and grab
I was
that rim.
up there. Yeah, I could get up there.
Wow.
So ironically, my basketball journey is how I wound up becoming a professional journalist because when I first went to college, I went to college to be an accountant, if you can believe it or not. Wow. And the first year I was in college, I did an internship in the summer at a bank. This Bank One, actually, downtown. Going back, people probably, if you're of a certain age, you probably don't even remember Bank One. But
I do.
Yeah, they had me doing some payroll stuff down there in the summer, just kind of doing that. And I said to myself, man, I just can't see myself doing this day in and day out, just punching numbers in spreadsheets and whatnot. And so when I went back to college that next year after I decided, basketball wasn't going to work out, a few of my teammates were like, well, man, they need a sports reporter at the college paper. Why don't you go cover basketball? That way you can still be around us, be around the guys in the team. And I was like, why not? I didn't know a thing about journalism, but I had read enough papers and seen enough that I could at least fake what a sports story was supposed to sound like. So I got involved in that and really kind of fell in love with it, started taking some classes, and then the rest was kind of history. I'd come home in the summers and do freelance work for the Journal. And
sports or anything.
Anything, back then.
Jerry Nardiello.
Yeah, hey, look, Jerry was. That's a whole other story. I don't know if we have time enough to talk about all
Rick
the Jerry
McCrabb.
Rick McCrabb.
Yeah,
that's my guy. And just did that all throughout my college career. And then when I graduated college, tried to come back and get a job at the Journal. And at that time, even the Journal didn't hire, even though it was a smaller paper, they didn't hire you straight out of college. You had to have a couple years of experience, but they put in a good word for me at a small paper in Xenia, and that was a part of the same newspaper company. And so I got that job, worked there for like a year and a half, and then the Journal was like, hey, we think you're ready, and so they brought me back to cover arts and entertainment for the city of all things. And so I did that for about 6 or 7 months, and then I got lucky enough to be able to catch a job at the Enquirer as a reporter there. They were starting to expand their readership to Butler and Warren counties, because that's when this whole area started growing. Westchester, Mason really started blowing up back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they hired me because they knew I was familiar with the area and had kind of grown up here, and they gave me a shot and went down there, and then career just kind of took off from there.
Wow, so are you now in the Cincinnati area, living there?
Yeah, so we live in Westchester. My wife and I, we lived in Cincinnati and Bond Hill for probably about the first 8 years that we were married, and then in 2015. We moved out to Westchester. We found a house there. Okay. We weren't even really looking to move to Westchester. The interesting thing, how we wound up there, when we were looking for new houses, our realtor brought us out to the house that we were at, and we had looked at a whole bunch of other houses around Cincinnati most of that day. And I remember it was snow on the ground. It was a cold day, so we were kind of half-hearted into it anyway. And the last house on our tour had the exact same house number as the house we lived in, 5406.
Wow.
And so that was the only reason why we went to look at that house, because we were tired. It was cold. We were about to call it a day. And the realtor was like, well, do you want to do this or not? And we were like, well, who knows? It's got the same house number. Maybe there's something to that. Yeah. And boy, it wasn't. We loved it. We fell in love with that house, and I think the next day wound up putting in an offer for it.
Wow,
so,
wow.
Again, it's just funny how you wind up in certain places.
So for perspective, Kevin, what year, this will age you, but what year did you graduate from Middletown High School?
So I graduated in 1992.
1992, okay. All right. And were you a multi-sport athlete or just?
I did. Back then, that's kind of what kids did. Now, football was my first love.
Okay.
I love football to this day. Is my favorite sport.
Did you have, or do you have, a favorite college football team?
Oh, yeah. I'm a Buckeyes guy.
All
the way through.
baby.
Ohio State. I mean, how can you not love the Buckeyes? Now,
that's the right answer.
I do kind of have a side girlfriend, if you will, in college football teams, which would be I was a bit of a Miami Hurricanes fan too as well coming up. So the few times that Ohio State and Miami have kind of met,
which this year they did.
It's been like you can't really lose one way or the other, but I think primarily I'm a Buckeye.
A Buckeye. So 1992. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about this too on some of our other podcasts. There's something about this area. It's produced some pretty amazing athletes. And it's just, I don't know if it's in the water, I don't know what, but it's I wonder with Middletown, back to what you said, and the thing that we love about Middletown, we made the choice a long time ago when our kids were growing up that they were going to go to Middletown. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons is we love the diversity. We wanted them to be living in Middletown. We live in Middletown, and we wanted them exposed to people who are maybe they're a little bit different looking than them, or maybe their skin tone is. But my son did. This is powerful. This is a testament to Middletown, and they had both Ellie and Luke had great careers. I remember him taking a college visit, and I'll not name the college, but he went and he walked away. He's like, no way, it's too white. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. He said, I want a place of diversity. And so he grew up in Middletown. We loved it. We are Middies, although Marianne and I didn't go to Middletown. We consider ourselves Middies. And you grew up in a great era and have had some great coaches, great friends, great teachers, great mentors. Tell us about probably as you as a journalist. Do you know Clarence Page?
I do know Clarence Page.
So tell us a little bit about Clarence for our audience that would not know Clarence Page.
Yeah, so Clarence Page he's a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist who has been with the Chicago Tribune for some time, and he's from Middletown. In fact, even before I knew I wanted to get into journalism, like you'd heard of Clarence Page because, the version of Clarence Page for the Journal when I grew up was Elman Pryor. Elman Pryor, who wrote columns for a number of years for the Middletown Journal. So I grew up reading a lot of Elman, and of course Elman would always talk about Clarence, and so he was just one of those famous Middletonians who had come through here, was from here, and had gone on to do great things. And so you kind of grow up learning and hearing about all these great Middletown people, whether they're athletes or whatever. I say all the time, Middletown punches above its weight.
It does.
In terms of
that.
famous people, who have come out of a town this size.
Yes.
I have conversations with people in Cincinnati all the time, and it's kind of like, yeah, does Cincinnati even have as many, noted people that have of different disciplines that have come out of there that have gone on to do great things? And so, but yeah, as I got into journalism professionally myself, I would run into Clarence at, different events, different media functions, national media functions, whether that's National Association of Black Journalists or National Columnists Association, associations and things like that. And just anytime you get with him, he gets into talking about old Middletown and asking about if, certain people are still around or certain families are still in the city. And for a guy who probably hasn't, lived in this area in quite some time, he's incredibly well connected and in touch with a lot of folks who are still from here. And so just an all around great guy, definitely a gem for the city of Middletown and someone who I just say, hey, if my career could be half as good as Clarence Page's, that would be something.
As you look back over your life, and we talk a lot about community, really the triple thread is all about community and really the opportunities that we have. Mm-hmm. Think about those people that really are impact players in Kevin Aldridge's life. Who are some of those? I mean, we may be able to guess some family members, but who are some of those people that really, inside and outside your blood family, that have really impacted your life?
Yeah, I mean, I always, again, you're right. I always start with my family because every hero that I had was in my household. You know, I tell people that all the time. Like, you ask a kid, they'll say Michael Jordan or Walter Payton or LeBron James. Like, my heroes were not famous people. My heroes were my brothers. I had 3 older brothers, and I grew up idolizing each one of them in their own way. And I often like to say that I am sort of like a composite of the entirety of my household, my 3 brothers, my mother and father. I think I have a little bit of all of them that have made up who I am. But the other great thing about that is I had a lot of role models outside. So I had solid parents at home, but I also had a lot of people in the community that kind of took care of you. It was an era back then where other people could discipline other people's kids. They could say something to you. If they saw you out in the community doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, not only would they call you out, but they'd call your mom. And before you could get home, you knew you were going to be dealing with some things. So I think about, the Michael Baileys of this community. I think about the Elman Pryors. I mentioned him. Mark Kearns is another good guy. There were I played a lot of sports, so a lot of coaches played a big part in that. Ron Smith, Lannis Timmons, just different people like that who not only taught you about sports, but they taught you about, being a man and how you're supposed to act. And character was a big thing. And character is a big thing for me too. Like, it's hard for me to get past that, right?
Yes.
Like because character is such an important thing for me, that it's something that I measure a lot in other people. It's something that I look at and I take a lot of stock in and try to think about that myself as being a person of good character. And all of those folks that I just named, like that's what they harped on. Jay Byrne, is another guy that
Jay Byrne from is that Milton's?
Yeah, Jay Byrne's from Milton's.
So I just was talking about him today. In fact, a buddy of mine was talking about Jay Byrne. We need to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, Jay's got a great story, and I mean, in many ways, Jay Byrne, really helped a young kid who was coming into high school, dealing with everything that goes along with that, trying to be competitive in sports and figure out who you are and develop some level of confidence. Like Jay Byrne was a guy who really believed in me and kind of invested in me and gave me the confidence to do maybe a little bit more than even I thought I could. Wow. And so it's people like that you have a great deal of respect for. And there were so many teachers, as well out at Middletown High School. I mean, way too many, that you could name. Dennis Stitzinger, who was my accounting teacher in high school. Just an all around, really good guy, who I have a lot of love for. So, I can't say anything bad about Middletown and the people here, because if I say anything bad about Middletown, I got to say something bad about myself.
That's right.
Yeah, because that's
you talked about character, and there's a scripture that always comes to mind. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and that's that character piece. As you're talking, as a journalist who have penned thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of words, whether you began by writing them or now typing them, our lives, think about it, our life really is a parchment, if you will. Yeah. And so many people have their signature all over that parchment, and they really have made that grand impression on us. And what I'm excited about is how God takes us on a journey. Talk about faith. There's something hanging around your neck. I'm sure it's just not a meaningless symbol. I'm sure there's something that means something. We want to talk about that when we get back from break. But we also want to talk about some exciting news, because I'm looking at Kevin Aldridge and I'm like, wait a minute. There's another Kevin Aldridge, and we're going to talk about that story when we come back, because there's a lot more. Joe, take us to break.
Yeah, I love how you talked about all these people that have had an influence on you. What I'm curious to hear is how you're paying that forward when we get back. Yeah. Triple Thread community, though, folks, it does run on your support, so please share. Please pass it along. We'll be right back.
Hey, thanks for tuning in also to this podcast for the Triple Thread. We are grateful for your support. We can't do it without you. We would not be doing this without an audience. So thank you for not only being a part of this community and taking the opportunity, but thank you for taking your time to view or to watch it. We hope you like it. We hope you tell your friends and family about it. Don't forget, every Monday at 6 a.m. it drops. You can get online and find that where you listen to podcasts. Also, if you're looking for community, one way that you can get involved is to jump on realcommunityforyou.com, realcommunity, the number 4, the letter U.com, where you can be engaged, and we'll tell you more about it, what it means to be a part of this thing called community. Speaking of community, the book Dirty Big Secret is out. If you don't have a copy, we'd love for you to pick up a copy of Dirty Big Secret, where you can discover the need for community. Over 7 years writing the book. It's a labor of love, but I believe you'll enjoy it. It's a memoir, and it takes you into the real blood and guts of life and community. So you can order that today on that website through my publisher, Orange Fraser, or you can pick it up at a Baraka location near you. Again, thanks for tuning in. Can't wait to get back and join the episode. Well, Joe, we're back with our good friend, Kevin Aldridge, and the Middletown man, and the 92 basketball phenom, right? I
don't know about that.
Yeah, Spud Webb, right? I mean, he had hops. Could you shoot a little bit?
I could shoot a little bit. I was more back then. I was very quick, so I had an ability to get to the basket.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna. Now as I grew and developed, my jump shot got better, but I wasn't a Steph Curry or anything like that. But you know, I had a little quicks, could get to the rack. Yeah.
So who were some of the guys that you played high school basketball with? Who were some of your teammates?
Yeah, so ironically, I played with Jerry Lucas's son, JJ Lucas, came back. So when I was a senior, Jerry brought JJ back to Middletown for my senior year. So he was a junior at that point in time. So that was kind of cool because, I mean, look, Jerry Lucas is the man. Like when it comes to basketball in Middletown, like if there's a Mount Rushmore, like he's in the center of it, right? When it comes to that sort of thing. So it was cool to be around him. His son was cool, was a good guy. And, you know, Jerry had all of these, you know, he had the memory thing. Yeah.
Memorize the Bible.
You know, I mean, it just an all around, just really great guy, interesting guy.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. Teddy Adams, I always say Teddy Adams is probably one of the great unsung Middie players whose name is probably not mentioned a lot in terms of the all-time greats, but he was a phenomenal player back then. I'm trying to think. I was a little younger then, but was kind of around in that same era. I think I may have been a freshman or so when Greg Derbyshire was with the Middies and Derek Gates and Jimmy Ratliff and that kind of that group of guys. Kevin Beard was a player who played when I was there. Aaron Till, Sean Teague were some of the name players. Tony Joseph. I mean, you know, a lot of guys that
thick and rich in history, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of great players, and we were pretty good. You know, that was back when Lakota was just one school, and they were pretty good back then as well. Right. But the GMC, man, they were tough back then. Hamilton, Lima, Lakota. It was a murderer's row almost every night, but we held our own.
Tough. So basketball would kind of take an interesting bounce, if you will, from you playing collegiately to now where you are today. And this is exciting, Joe. What has happened with, I would call them the Kevins.
Yeah.
So tell us, man. First of all, he's not here. I'm gonna say it. You're the best looking Kevin Aldridge.
I'll take that. And I'm going to definitely use that against him next time I see him.
Tell him to be on the podcast too, right?
I'll tell him the same thing.
Yeah. So tell us about the two Kevins and what has happened.
Yeah. So interesting enough. So Kevin L. Aldridge is also my cousin, and we've got a lot of things in common. He's a pastor. I'm a pastor. We got a lot of similar things that we do. So even at one point, we even drove the same model car. We both had kind of like black Mercedes C300s that we had. And so I know people thought we were just trolling them with that kind of stuff, but we really weren't. We just have a lot in common.
It's good.
But anyway, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, Kevin Aldridge, or my cousin Kevin, and a good friend of ours, Kelvin Moss, who's the head coach over at Lakota West, those two had been sort of talking about getting into some kind of business venture together and landed on doing something that they were passionate about, which was basketball. And so they got this idea that they wanted to create and start this minor league professional basketball team. And so they were kind of like, yeah, we don't think we can, you know, we need a third head to this monster to make it work. And so my cousin came to me and said, hey, Kelvin and I have been working on this idea. I don't want you to answer yet, but we're going to go to the league meeting for the American Basketball Association, which is the minor league, that we were going to play in. He's like, let's go to this annual meeting that they have, which was in Indianapolis that year. You know, let's talk to the commissioner, hear the pitch, talk to some of the other league owners, and then you can decide then if you wanted to be a part of it. And so I went, and it was just fantastic. I mean, I was immediately bought in. I was like, yeah, we gotta do this. and we got to do it in Cincinnati, right? Because, the Royals, the history of the Cincinnati Royals, the last pro basketball team, NBA team that they had in Cincinnati was the Royals. And I said, hey, let's pull some strings and see what we could make happen. And we did. We called in a lot of favors. We scraped up every dollar that we could to purchase the franchise, and we started it back in 2019, and we got off to a great start in Cincinnati.
Wow.
Had a lot of success. Our team was winning, and then before we could get to the playoffs, COVID hit. And we had to shut down everything, and we went away for about a year. And so all of that momentum that we had built up in the city just sort of went down the drain. A lot of the corporate sponsors that we had, when we came back, COVID had submarined some and had others adjust their budget. So it was kind of a slow climb back for the next couple of years after that. But we stuck with it, and now we've kind of hit our stride, and we're here 7 years later. The Ohio Kings is the name of our team that we've had in Cincinnati.
What are the colors?
The colors are black and gold.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, Bengals fans, of which I am one. I recognize those are Steelers colors, but man, they look really good on the Ohio Kings.
Look good. That's awesome. That's awesome. But it's not just stopping with the Ohio Kings, right?
Right. That's right.
So tell us about what's happening.
Yeah. So we've had so much success in Cincinnati with the Kings. We've actually got some big things that we're going to be announcing about them shortly. But as a result of the success that we had there, we said, hey, we want to do something positive for our hometown in Middletown. Because a lot of people from here support the Kings, businesses from here support the Kings and have supported Kevin and I. And we're like, hey, we don't just want to talk about, Middletown getting better. We wanted to be a part of trying to help to make Middletown better. So we said, you know what, we're going to bring a minor league team to Middletown. And that's what we're going to do in the fall of this year coming up. We're going to be bringing a team to the city of Middletown called the Maulers. They're going to be named the Middletown Maulers. And back in February, we had a couple of games. The Kings played here back-to-back weekends, Valentine's Day and the weekend before. And we announced during that two-game run that we were going to be bringing the team to Middletown. We showed off the jerseys and the logo.
Wow.
And we're really excited about doing that.
What are the colors for the Middletown Maulers?
Well, of course, it's purple and white.
There you go, baby.
You can't
I
not
love
do
it.
Yeah, you can't not do that.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, the Middletown Maulers, we're not talking about town maulers, are we? We're talking about...
So we wanted to play, we chose the name because we wanted to play on the city steel history. Yeah. So if you look at our logo, our logo is a steel worker in a hard hat pouring molten steel. And so that's what we've built it around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have family members and friends who worked at the mill, Kevin?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So my dad, who was a man of many, he was a teacher primarily, but my dad did a ton of odd jobs. I think he might have at one point in time done something there at the mill. But no, interestingly enough, I can't think of any family members offhand who actually worked at the mill. Which is kind of strange because
it's rare.
It is, but you're paying homage, obviously, to your hometown and obviously what has truly helped so many families. Man, we go all the way back where people were coming from Kentucky, right? I mean, to find jobs and they settled in this community. And the community of Middletown, it does have a rich history. And I tell you, just like anything, there's some bumps along the road. And I think we would all understand kind of the spiral. And now she's coming back and like a phoenix. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch, among other things. And I love this story, among other things. And I think it's beautiful. Not only are you owner, operator, CEO, CO, whatever it takes of basketball teams, but you're shepherding a flock of people. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so God and the church has always been a big part of my life. When I was growing up, my parents made sure we went to church even when we didn't want to go.
Yeah.
As kids, you'd much rather be, doing something else on your weekends than going to church because you don't, necessarily appreciate it, have the maturity to appreciate it like you should. But I'm thankful that my parents made us go. Like most kids, when I graduated from high school and got out to college and got on my own, I kind of veered away from that for a little while. But then when I was at about my mid-20s, my home church here in Middletown, Bethel AME,
Bethel AME. Shout out Bethel AME.
Yeah, we got a young pastor by the name of Kevin Parks.
Yes.
And it was great because he was older than me, but not so much older than I that there was a disconnect. Mm-hmm. And it was sort of the first time that I had somebody in ministry that was near my age range that I could kind of relate to, who could talk to me on a level, and I could talk to him about things that, maybe I wouldn't have felt comfortable talking with an older pastor about. And that really got me back into and excited about going to church. And I also kind of made a decision at that point that things were going pretty good for me in life. I'd been, fairly well blessed throughout my life. And I decided that I didn't want to be one of those people who came to God when he was sick or had hit rock bottom or things was down. And then suddenly you decide hey, I'm going to go find God. I didn't want to be one of those people. I'm I've been blessed. I've had a fortunate life. I want to try to get my relationship with God on good terms.
Right.
And having him as a pastor made that a little bit easier. And so during his tenure there, he got me very involved. He put me in leadership positions in the church. I think I was probably one of the youngest members of our steward board at our church. And so it was it really got me into it, got me interested in learning and all of that good stuff. And it was a very transformational part of my life. Fast forward maybe about 10 years, I started doing youth ministry in the church.
Wow.
And that pastor I had told you about, he had transitioned on to a different place, and we had a new pastor. And that pastor at that time saw how I was putting together the messages for the children. And she said, I don't know if you've ever thought about this. She's like, but you have a singular talent of being able to sort of understand scripture and relay it. And she was like, I have a lot of adults come up to me, when you do the children's lessons for the kids, they say sometimes they get more out of those than they do my sermons. And she kind of said, laughing. And so she was like, you really ought to think about, she was like, you really ought to think about, pray on whether you have a calling to go into ministry. And so I did. I took it seriously and thought about it and eventually got into the process of becoming ordained to be, a pastor. And then shortly after I got ordained, they threw me into the fire and gave me a church out in Milford, Ohio. And but it was a great experience, small church, maybe about 15 people out there. But it was perfect for me. It was kind of like a perfect training ground to just kind of, learn and cut your teeth and figure out how to not just preach a message, but really administrate a church and be over a congregation. And I've had a couple of opportunities to pastor a few other churches. And then my mother passed away in 2022, and was having a rough time with that. So I had asked my elders at that time if I could take a little sabbatical from the pulpit, just to kind of get myself together mentally and emotionally. And one of my spiritual mentors in the church said, they're going to let you take that break, but I'm not going to let you get away from ministry. So you're going to come be with me at my church and help me get my youth ministry.
Powerful.
Help me get my youth ministry on board. And so I've been doing that for the last 5 years.
So took the pressure off of you actually leading the whole congregation. but did not allow you to get away from community.
That's right.
Bring you back in, and so you've been shepherding and doing youth ministry?
Yeah, for the last 4 or 5 years, and it has been one of the great joys of my life. I mean, it's grown. When I got there, we had 6 kids. We got 50 kids now.
Oh my goodness.
In the ministry. Parents are coming to church now. That's a message for all of you ministers out there. If you get the kids, the parents will come too. The kids will drag their parents to church, and that's kind of exactly what's happening.
Now, where locally is this church, Kevin?
It's in Bond Hill in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Ironically, it is probably like 3 blocks away from the house my wife and I used to live in
Unbelievable.
Bond Hill. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, wow, you're there and serving and just leaning into the next generation, which we talk about all the time. In fact, our yearly theme, we do a theme every year here at Baraka, and our yearly theme literally is so that the next generation might know. Kevin, today you have again encouraged us. You are a walking, talking billboard for what Middletown is. I love that. I truly do. I'm a transplant, but I love to hear it. This is where God's called us. We believe in this place, one place for a lifetime. I travel a lot, and I get to go all around the world, really and truly. I'll say this: when I come back to Middletown, my heart starts beating again. It truly is, and that's not just preacher speak. It's real. This is the place God has called our family to be in, and it's a delight just to see how God is using people like yourself creatively.
Well, you as well.
And it's just, these are the sweet moments in life that, God connects us and collects us into community, and he allows us to use our gifts. I will say this to you. I've said this, and I've seen it. Just finished writing that book after many, many years, and it's published. And I'll say this. Normally, a person is either a very good orator or they're a very good writer. Normally, you don't find a person who is very good or blessed at both. And I can say this because of your writing and because of the gift that God's given you to speak. You are one of those who, man, that's a gift. It really is.
Thanks, Adam.
And for me, I know this. I love to speak, but man, that writing, that was hard stuff, but I'm grateful that I was able to do it. And all these articles that you continue to write, you continue to write for the Journal, right?
Yeah. I write I work for the Enquirer. I do opinions. I always say an opinionated pastor. That's probably one of the worst things you get, combinations that you can put together.
Wait a minute, but you think we got opinions?
Yeah. Well, the scripture says a fool delights in his own opinion, right? So I guess I'm probably one of the biggest, one of the biggest ones out there. I'll just say this to you, Lamar. Obviously, you have done some fantastic work out here at the church, and I mean, just to look at the growth from obviously where Baraka was and where you guys are today, and what you're doing and the impact you're having in the community. Definitely, you deserve some flowers for that as well. And I think, in these times that we're living in, I mean, I think we're all called to kind of remember the teachings of Jesus and the humanity that unites us. And I always say pastors can't preach about love enough. We tend to bounce all around the Gospels and the Scriptures for different messages, but I'm like, we can almost preach love every Sunday, because if we can learn to get that down as people, all of the rest of it takes care of itself. There's a reason why love God with all your heart, soul, and mind is the first and greatest commandment, and the second is like unto it: love your neighbor as yourself. The 2 greatest commandments all involve love for God and love for your fellow man. And I think if we can master that, all of the rest of this madness that we see around the world would take care of itself. Which is the true beauty. It couldn't be said any better, Kevin. The beauty of community. When he said, love God and love people, love the neighbor, it's awesome. We give God glory for what he's done. We are, we marvel at what he does. We're thankful. I'm so grateful. I will say this, one of the ways that I've been signing my book lately is just this, life, man, it's hard, right? And it can be messy. But I will say this, Kevin, to you,
It may be messy, but God has made it so beautiful with people like you in it. So
Appreciate
grateful that you've joined us today. Joe, it's been another delightful time. Take us out.
It has. Kevin, thank you for blessing us. Thank you for blessing the listeners. Your story's incredible. You wear so many hats. I got tired just listening to you. I can't even imagine. But, yeah, thank you, brother, for being here today. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Folks, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. That's what helps us grow. Thanks again, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks all of you who are watching. Joe, thank you so much. Joe, you're a blessing. Zach, our producer, wow, thank you. And can't forget my handy-dandy assistant named Sandy.
Sandy's amazing.
For, keeping us straight. So love you guys. Be blessed. We'll see you at our next podcast.